Baroness, a review of Graciliano Ramos's Barren Lives, Vidas Secas. Before anything, this is an analysis of the book as a whole. Be prepared to see all kinds of spoilers. I recommend you to read the book before the video. Let's return to the review now. Barren Lives is a Brazilian book about a family that lives in the dry semi-arid of Brazil, also known as Sertão. Written by Graciliano Ramos, Barren Lives is not, though, merely a novel about drought. It is an inquiry into what remains of ethical life when scarcity corrodes all aspects of one's life. The book's 13 chapters, from move to flight, form a broken circle, a sequence that begins and ends in motion, as if history in Brazil's Sertão repeated itself in an eternal recurrence. The first pages deal with the phenomenon of deprivation. Ramos places Fabiano's family in a landscape where even shade seems to run away. Through a grammar of parataxis and insistence, language shrinks too. Sentences are short, thoughts come in small bursts. The opening image, two faraway patches of a green tree in a reddish plain, frames the family's march as an experiment. How much of the human can persist when need sets the rhythm of perception, attention, and action? This experiment continues inside the home, where Miss Victoria's recurring thought of a bed, real wood, real leather, becomes a compact moral philosophy. Dignity as an attainable object that organizes desire. The bed is not merely consumption, it is the minimum stable ground for rest. It is a glimpse of a life more than bare survival. Ramos's most brilliant move is to show human interiority, struggling not through silence, but through inarticulateness. Fabiano both mistrusts and envies literacy. He believes firmly that knowledge offers no shelter against drought or bosses. The result is a subjectivity that reasons, hesitates, and even philosophizes, but does so in grunts and self-corrections. An ethics without eloquence. This is clearest in the jail sequence. A petty official, the yellow soldier, manufactures an offense by planting his boot on Fabiano's sandal. Humiliation quickly becomes state-sanctioned violence. Fabiano is unable to narrate his own innocence in a form that the authority understands. His protest stagnates at the very threshold where reason would need political standing to be heard. The scene repeats a deeper structure, the mystification by which the weak internalize the majesty of the abstract government while encountering only its petty agents. Government is government, he concedes, and removes his hat, a ritual of submission that expresses a philosophy of necessity rather than consent. The novel's political ontology is therefore one of exception normalized. The law appears not as a codified order, but as a discretionary force that oscillates between arbitrariness and absence. When Fabiano later faces that same yellow soldier in the backlands, what horrifies him is not the man's power but his cowardice, the recognition that domination can be both abject and effective. Ramos captures the corrosive dialectic by which the oppressed recognize themselves in the oppressor's frailty, and with that recognition, feel their own measure diminish. If politics in Barren Lives is the theater of the arbitrary, economics is the picture of dispossession. In Accounts, Ramos anatomizes the small calculus that defeats saving before it begins. The quarter calves and third goat kids that must be liquidated to eat, the usurious advice that rationalizes every loss, the fact that those tied to the ground don't climb. This is the economic oppression in his dry land. Impersonal, repetitive, and felt in the body, as tightening in the throat before words arrive. One of the saddest parts of the book, if not the saddest, is the chapter about Whale, the family dog. If Thomas Nagel addressed What Is It Like to Be a Bat in 1974, Graciliano Ramos in 1938 tried to frame What Is It Like to Be a Dog. His prosopopoeia rhetoric, attributing human feelings and thoughts to Whale, makes us feel more and more identified and attached to the dog, leading to a more intense reaction when we read its death. This sad chapter sparks in us two particularly interesting meditations. The ethical dilemma that Fabiano faced due to the dog's illness, and the core desire of the dog in its last thought, a world full of guinea pig, that is, full of food. Whale needed only the most basic needs to be attained in order to be happy. Was it an accidental or purposeful analogy to the cynics, the dogs, and their similar defense in the way of life? Time, finally, is the book's largest philosophical wager. In The World Covered in Feathers, omens take the form of birds draining the last water as the drought returns. The insight, credited to Ms. Victoria and slowly grasped by Fabiano, is diagnostic rather than superstition. Calamity is a chain of small, legible causes. The last chapter, Flight, closes the circle. In this masterpiece of Graciliano Ramos, departure is not escape, but the refusal to fossilize into mere thinghood. So that's Barren Lives. Drought, economic oppression, government oppression, dilemmas, survival, and more than just survival. Tell me, which scene hit you the hardest? What did you think of this Brazilian book?